Hello everyone, my name is Andrea Arellano, and today I will be talking about the impacts of land use on pollinator composition and abundance in a small-scale, semi-arid environment. I would like for you to imagine a world full of continuous growing trees, clean air, clean water, and food security. This can be a rather easy picture to envision since we often take our environment's health for granted. But the actions previously and currently taken within a fast-developing country can deem to be far from our expectations of the future. As a result of increased industrialization in developed countries, land use has become a form of common good where main interest focuses on livelihood, productivity, shared benefits, community control, system change, and less for environmental importances. This has produced many consequences, from which includes population declines in pollinator populations worldwide. Research has shown how the fragmentation in urban development is responsible for the high increase of pollinator species extinctions, and how large-scale transformations of landscapes are linked to extensive and constant losses of native pollinator species. Now, why does this matter? Why are pollinators so important? Research has demonstrated that pollinators are directly and indirectly responsible for several important aspects of our daily lives. Pollinators are responsible for pollinating vegetation of different species that provide our planet with food, clean water, air, and soil. Due to declining rates of pollinators, many plants are also declining drastically. Pollinators hold a high economic and ecological importance due to this. As pollinators, they are responsible for the indirect production of medicine, biofuels, fibers, construction materials, and food that brings in over $500 billion to the United States every year. Pollinators are extremely important for providing us with much of the food we eat. More than 3,500 species of native bees help increase crop yields that require almost 80% of pollination by animals. The United States Department of Agriculture mentions that pollinators are key to also providing ecosystems with clean air, soil, and water through their direct relationship with plants. Pollinators are crucial to the reproduction of wild plants in our fragmented global landscape. Flowering plants are important for their production of clean air through carbon cycling and sequestration. Pollinators are also known to allow flowering plants to purify water and prevent erosion through roots that hold soil in place. The water cycle depends on plants to return moisture to the atmosphere, and plants depend on pollinators to help them reproduce. Not only do pollinators benefit our world through production of food, clean air, water, and soil, but they have also been collaborators in the development of both ancestral and modern medicine. Such examples include milk thistle to treat liver conditions and high cholesterol. Since pollinators are responsible for many important aspects of our daily lives, and since there have been correlations between land use and declining rates of pollinators, I wanted to further explore pollinator species composition and abundance in different land use types to further understand why their populations are declining. With this, my ultimate purpose is to help improve current management strategies for land use while also raising concern for decline of pollinators, since it is not a very well-studied subject other than for honeybees. I hypothesized that the increase in land use and spatial heterogeneity within the area I studied would be the lead cause to a decline in pollinator species abundance to native species and disrupt composition. To test this, I first identified 10 sites to conduct surveys at Colorado State University, Pueblo. 5 sites had heavy land use, meaning they were heavily disturbed or considered landscaped areas, and 5 sites had low land use, meaning that plenty of native vegetation existed compared to other areas on campus, or had a few anthropogenic modifications. Each site was about 100 meters apart from each other as well. After sites were designated, I conducted pollinator plant surveys. To do this, a random direction was selected through a random number generator, and this was applied to the compass. Temperature, cloud cover, and moistness were also accounted for. Plants were identified through pictures, and afterwards, 10-minute observations for pollinator visitors were conducted. Pollinators were identified through pictures and field guides. Once all field methods were completed, I conducted data analysis. For this, I compared the abundance and number of species on each site. To do so, I ran a t-test for the total number of individuals at each site and the number of species found at each site. Then, I compared the frequency of visitations at each site for each pollinator species that were found on both site types, which were disturbed or natural. To do so, I ran a chi-square analysis. What I ended up finding was that there were no significant differences between pollinator abundance on disturbed landscaped sites versus sites with native vegetation / few anthropogenic modifications. My t-value was 0.617 and my p-value was 0.7641, again insignificant. I found that for visitations, 12 species only found on disturbed sites, 16 species were only found on natural sites, 25 species were found on both disturbed and natural sites. From the chi-square, I found that the chi values were 39.85 and the p-value equaled 0.022, which indicated that this was significant. The mosaic plot here on the right demonstrates the different species types by color and frequencies by the size of each color on the colored block. Species such as 19, which was a small ant represented in the greenish color block, was mostly found on natural lands and not much so on disturbed land. Another example is species number 48, which was represented in brown on this mosaic plot, which was a hoverfly. And this was found more often on disturbed land than on natural land. From this graph, it can be implied that some pollinators had a preference in land type, while others showed no true preference between the two different land use types. From the analysis, I conclude that land use can change, they can affect species in highly variable ways within and across taxa. In this study, some species appeared to be diet specialists, while others appeared to be diet generalists. It is important to note that dietary specialists tend to have greater sensitivity to land use than generalists, since generalists can adapt to consuming nectar from various plants, while generalists cannot do so efficiently. I also add that spatial scale experience is different for each species. From previous research, it has been found that it is linked to its trophic level or traits such as body size, resource specialization, rarity, and population size variability. In this study, I found that resource specialization and/or trophic level was often a potential indicator to why certain species appeared more on disturbed land over natural land, and vice versa. Not enough information or statistical analysis was available to compare rarity and population size variability, but from studying morphology of the species that were found, there were none that were rare or invasive to Colorado besides one wasp species. Finally, there needs to be more research to be able to determine if habitat loss is a reason, or one of the main reasons, that global pollinators are declining at such a rapid rate. To do so, we need to first assess the extent to which the existing studies represent the status of global ecosystems. For this, there needs to be more awareness and investment to pollinator research and conservation efforts. In order to further understand pollinator declines, we need to create more studies that examine changes in diversity. We tend to see many studies on honeybee declines, but not much is known about other pollinating species, especially that of insects. To extend the findings of this study, I also believe that the methods of this study should expand to different areas in Pueblo. Finally, I believe it is important to further examine pesticide levels in urban development to truly understand the variables that are affecting pollinator populations. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.